Okay, so welcome everyone to HOMT 611 Events Management. My name is Dr. Sheena Boateng and I'm going to be your facilitator for this course. So today in session 1, we are going to be discussing events management, an introduction. And we'll basically be covering a few basic concepts and issues that we are supposed to be familiar with before we go into the huge details of events management. So by the end of this session, there are certain outcomes we hope to have achieved. The first one being that by the end of this session, you should be able to appreciate the nature of the event and event management industry, right? And you should also be able to explain the common characteristics of events and identify some specific types of events. You should also be able to understand the motives for which participants participate in an event. And then also be able to explain the nature and relationship between hospitality, tourism, and event management. Because most often, these three concepts go together and they are intertwined together. In certain countries around the world, you'll find that they actually have academic programs that are full specializations or degree programs specifically in hospitality, tourism, and event management. So we need to be able to understand how these three concepts are linked to each other. So that is what we will be doing in today's course. At any point in time during the session, if you have a question to ask, you can raise your hand, I'll indicate, and then you can speak up. If you feel that I'm going too fast or there's a contribution you want to make, kindly let me know so that I can slow down or give you the chance to express yourself. Please, I hope that is okay with everyone.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. So we will begin. All right. So the first topic we will talk about is why events and events management. And in asking that question, we want to familiarize ourselves with what events are, as well as what events management is. So we are saying that events are non-routine occasions that are set apart from the normal activities of daily life. And these non-routine occasions are intended to enlighten, celebrate, entertain, or challenge the group of people who the event is targeted at through the creation of valuable experiences. Now, the emphasis here is on non-routine occasions and the creation of what? Valuable experiences. So as we go along, these concepts are going to come up very, very often. And I want us all to keep them at the back of our minds. So what two concepts did I say you have to keep at the back of your mind as it relates to the definition of events? Can someone kindly tell us?
Non-routine occasions.
Good.
And then creation of valuable experiences.
Awesome. So that means that when we talk about events, of all the things that events are, these two things should be pivotal at the back of our minds. Now, when we talk about events, they don't just happen by themselves, right? They are put together by a group of people who are engaging in several activities at a time to make sure that the multifaceted aspects of the event all come together in unison to create these valuable experiences that we are talking about. And because of the complex nature of events, they are not routine in the sense that they are so massive and involve so much organization that they do not happen on a daily basis. Because imagine organizing something that is so Herculean and complex on a daily basis, you will become exhausted. So events have to be organized and managed to be able to see them come to pass. And the process of doing this is what we refer to as event management. So when we say event management, what are we saying? We are saying that it is a part of the larger field of tourism that includes the planning, organizing, and execution of events and the people that make it happen in order to deliver value to all the parties involved. So that is what we mean when we say events management. Does anyone have a question to ask before we proceed? Amekwa, your hand is up. Or is that is rude, right?
Sorry.
Okay, you don't have a question?
No.
Okay, I saw the hand up, so I thought you had a question.
I have lowered it now, sorry.
Okay, awesome. So we can go ahead.
Yes, please.
All right. Please, this is a very interactive class. So you have to engage with me, because at the graduate level, it's about interaction and sharing of ideas. So at any point in time, you have to respond to me so that we can be able to banter to make sure that we achieve our objectives. Please, you understand me?
Yes, we do.
Please.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So now that we have appreciated what events and events management is, let's talk about the characteristics of events. Now, there are 9 main characteristics of events that I want us to talk about. The first one being the uniqueness, the second one, perishability, the third one, intangibility, the fourth one, rituals and ceremonies, the fifth one, personal interaction, 6, ambience, 7, fixed time scale, 8, labor intensiveness, and then 9, budget requirements. So we'll take these one after the other. All right, first let's talk about uniqueness. Now, under uniqueness, we are saying that each event is and will always be different. Regardless of how much we try to plan a particular event to look like the other, there's no way that they will be the same. It's like the way people see different kinds of dresses on television and the internet, and they take the picture to their seamstresses or tailors to sew exactly the same thing for them. Please, what usually happens when they do that? Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I'm asking that trying to create events that look like are like when someone sees someone wearing a dress on a red carpet, for instance, and takes a picture and takes it to their tailor or seamstress to sew the same thing for them. Usually, by the time the dress comes back, the tailor will do their best to get it to be the same as the one you saw, but most of the time, it's not. True or false?
True.
And that classically tells us how events are in terms of their uniqueness. Regardless of how good the organizer is, they cannot replicate exactly what the previous event had. What they can do is to create a whole new set of experiences, because we have appreciated that experiences cannot be perfectly replicated. So in their own way, they can try to create an experience that will somewhat make you happy, but will not be the same as the experience that you are making reference to. And we are saying that in terms of uniqueness, a number of things come to play when we are talking about events. We can first mention the participants, because the difference between one event and the other can be how the audience or the participants at that event related to each other versus how the audiences at another event related to each other. Uniqueness can also come about in terms of the atmosphere that is created at the place. There are certain events that you enter into and the whole atmosphere gives you a certain emotion. Even before you sit down and engage in any activity at that event, the atmosphere alone is giving you some kind of experience. We can also talk about the surroundings, the food, the beverages, the entertainment, right? As well as several other variables that we can pinpoint in relation to the event that all contribute to creating a unique experience that you cannot find at another event that you attend. And that is what we mean when we talk about the uniqueness of events. So every event you will attend is unique. Please, are we okay?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Also, we can talk about the perishability of events. And this flows directly from the fact that they are unique. If an event is unique, it means that once you have exhausted the time period for that event, it is done. You cannot bring it back. And in that case, you cannot clone it as well. So you realize that people will keep talking about that event that I went to on that day, how I felt, and the people I met, and all that. But it's always done in what? Past tense, because the event has what? Perished.
Perish.
The time period is over. It has elapsed. So they can only talk about it in the past tense. So we are saying you cannot store events for future consumption. You cannot say that, oh, I went to the event, it was so good, I'm going to keep the event and take it to my house so that I can keep enjoying it, because, Charlie, I can't afford to not enjoy this thing every day. It's impossible. Once it's over, it's over. Perishability also relates to the use of facilities for events, and this is a very important aspect of event management when it comes to making returns on investment, because people have invested in huge facilities and locations for which events are organized. However, when there's no event taking place, there is no way by which they can recoup the benefits that they could have got if an event was being held at the location or the facility on that particular day. So if no one comes to host an event at the facility or the location for a week or a month, you lose all the revenue you could have gained, and there's no way you can recoup it. That again is an indication of the perishability of events. And at the same time too, we can talk about items and props that are used as part of events. You realize that events nowadays are a whole production. Weddings, parties, concerts, you realize that there's so much items and props that go into it. From the backdrops to the king and queen stools that the bride and groom sit on. For the concerts, we have the stage that they set up, the microphones, the equipment, the mixers, the chairs, the tables. These are all props and items, right, that are used for events. However, in the case that there's no event going on, the items are just there in storage, and you do not earn any money or value off of them because they are just there. No one has rented them yet.
Yeah.
So once you have lost the revenue, say the 2 CDs that you could have rented the chair out for today, you can't keep it on another day. It is perished and gone. And that is what we mean when we talk about the perishability of events. Please, does it make sense?
Yes, please.
Okay. The next characteristic we can talk about is intangibility. And this goes back to that characteristic of events that we talked about, being that they are valuable experiences. Experiences are created as a result of different services that are performed by different individuals at different periods of time. And all these different services are put together to create an experience. However, experiences are intangible. If you ask someone to give you the experience they had, perhaps when they attended the Kensi 2020 wedding, they can't give it to you.
No.
They can only describe it to you and tell you how they felt, or what they saw, or what they ate, but they can't give it to you tangibly because it was an experience. So it is important to bear in mind that even the least tangible elements of the event that you are organizing has a role to play in creating this intangible experience that we are talking about. So people have formed perceptions about events they have attended based on little things like food. Everything could have been awesome, but the only tangible element that was not good is what they end up judging the event by. Who has experienced that before, or who has actually done that before?
So many times.
You go to an event, it's so nice, you have so much fun, and one person annoys you, one participant gets on your nerves, and that is the whole experience you bring home.
It's true.
Very true.
Good. That is what we are talking about, the little tangible elements, because people cannot touch the experience. So the little things that they can see is what they put together to judge whether the experience was a good one or a bad one. And that is what we mean when we talk about the intangibility of events. The fourth characteristic that we are going to talk about is ambience. I've experienced this so many times, and it is so important to me. And in recent times, the players in the event management industry, especially those who are in the modern era of event planning, are using all manner of technologies and designs and techniques to create ambience. Please, has anyone been to any of these unique floral weddings before? Have you been to a wedding organized by unique floral events before?
Yes.
The one that they have at their center.
Their center, yes.
Yes.
On the
How was
Bema
the
company.
ambience? How was the ambience?
Okay, their decor was very unique.
Good.
And I saw a whole of that was some years back. That was my first time of seeing this chocolate fountain.
Yeah.
That was some years back, some years back actually. But that was my first time of seeing that.
Yeah, and you still remember?
Yes,
Good.
I do.
Good, because of the ambience that they created. And they used what?
Yeah.
Tangible elements. And you remember that one tangible element, which was the what? The chocolate fountain.
The fountain, yes.
For me, it is usually the lighting and the way they use the lights to complement the colors of the flowers.
Yeah.
And the all white interior with the dripping that comes down. So the lights versus the white dripping creates some kind of atmosphere, like you have stepped into some holy place. And these days, more event planners are able to replicate it. Even the hotels are able to replicate it in their conference rooms for wedding reception. They even sometimes do conferences and conference dinners, right? And that is what we are talking about when we say ambience. It is one of the most important determinants of the outcome of an event, which is again experience-based, because we cannot touch the ambience, but we can remember the individual elements that created the ambience. Like you just mentioned, the chocolate fountain. I always remember the flowers and the dripping and the lighting. These three things always do it for me when it comes to ambience, if they are properly done. So we are saying that an event with the right ambience could be a huge success versus an event that does not have a correct ambience. You will not feel anything different. And it will be like, well, any other event that you go to, because there was nothing special about it. So with ambience, we are saying that the event manager or organizer must always aim at getting a reaction out of the participants. And in this case, the reaction they got out of you was by using the word chocolate fountain. And they got the reaction out of me by using the flowers and the draping and the lights. So all these elements come together to encourage participants to react and interact with each other. But there are certain aspects of ambience that you cannot control, like the backgrounds and the interactions of the people who come for the event. Some people try to do that by creating guest lists and limiting attendance and hiring bouncers. But unfortunately, that aspect you cannot control, because you may limit the interaction of people to the extent that you believe you can. However, the people that you do let in and who participate in the event will also on their own create an ambience, which you cannot manage because it is human behavior. So when we talk about ambience, these are the elements that we are referring to. We are referring to everything from the invited guests, to how the food and drinks are prepared, to how the room is decorated, to how the guests even arrive and get settled into their seats, to how they integrate and socialize with each other, as well as how the food and the drinks are served, right? How many times have you gone to an event and been angry because of the waiter who served you? Because they didn't serve you well? Who has gone to an event and gotten angry because of a waiter before? who has got an event and be angry? This one don't lie. I want everybody to be very honest. Everything went well, but the waiter serving the drinks or the one serving the food. Either they were being stingy with putting the food on your plate, or they were not giving you the drinks you were asking for. You see, as one auntie of mine will say, the drinks were not flowing the way she wanted them to flow. Right? And that was the element of the ambience that affected her. Right? But more specifically, when we talk about how the guests integrate and socialize with each other, we can talk about stimulating conversation. Some guests attend events, and if you do not do something to get them to talk to each other, they will never say a word to each other. They'll just sit down like strangers from the beginning of the event to the end. So some event organizers will put in place measures to ensure that they are able to get the guests or the participants to engage. And artists who perform at concerts do this very well. They have little tricks and techniques by which they are able to get the audience's attention and get them to engage with them so that it is not a boring event from beginning to end. Because they say body language is infectious. Once one person is sitting down and is bored and is not participating in anything, he will infect all the others and they will all just sit down and be bored. But the moment one person shows some enthusiasm, that is why we have in the model projecting enthusiasm. Once one person shows some enthusiasm towards what is happening at the event, it equally infects the others and they all want to participate, right? Some organizers will also encourage dancing by playing music. And that is why oftentimes when we go to events, even though it is not an informal event, even at formal events like conferences and meetings, you realize that whoever is in charge of the music likes to play music that is contemporary, likes to play the popular tracks that everyone is listening to and singing right now, just to get people to be enthusiastic and be excited about being part of the event and being at the venue. And that is all about the ambience and how to get people to enjoy the ambience of the events that you're organizing and get to experience the full extent of whatever you have planned. So that is it for ambience. Again, we can talk about personal contact and interaction. Now, during event planning and organizing, customers have frequent contact with event organizers and staff. There's no way event managers or organizers can say that they are organizing an event completely without the input of the one who commissioned the event. When you commission an event, you have a certain vision in mind. You have a certain budget you're working with. And it is the job of the event organizer to make sure, yes. Is it Ruth? Ruth, please, you can speak up.
Yes, okay. Then please, I want to know if the ambience elements,
yes,
is it one of the characteristics of events, or that is
ambience is a characteristic of events.
No, the ambience elements.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The ambience elements are the characteristics or the dimensions of ambience.
Okay, okay.
So ambience elements are under ambience.
Okay, 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 okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, does anyone else have something to ask? Or we should go on? Okay, let's go on then. So like I was saying, personal contact and interaction are a must when it comes to event management because the organizers and their staff have to be in consistent interaction with the one who commissioned the event to make sure that they are satisfying the event brief to the letter. This often determines the quality or otherwise of the experience that the participants will have at the event because whoever commissioned the event knows to a large extent who their audience is and who the participants are going to be. So they will tell you how you should fashion the event to make sure that you create the kind of experience that they know their participants will be looking for. So if someone commissions an event, the event organizers and staff have to have consistent contact and interaction with the one who commissioned it to make sure that they are giving them exactly what they are looking for at every stage of the planning and execution process. Now, people attending events are also often themselves part of the planning and execution process, because once they are going to be there and experience it, they need to be able to have a voice in how the event is planned. So the constant interaction and personal contact that takes place is all towards an agreement that will enable the event organizer and their staff to create a good, valuable experience for the people who are going to be participating in the event on the set date. Please, I hope that makes sense. Please, I can't hear you.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Okay, awesome. Next, we can talk about rituals and ceremonies. Now, rituals and ceremonies are another characteristics of events, in the sense that many modern events are just fossilized or reinvented versions of old traditions. You will agree with me that a lot of the events that we host today have been events that have been held since the time of our grandfathers and great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers. And they are performed in accordance with social norms and traditions. However, over the years, we realized that they have been modified and reinvented in so many ways. For instance, would you agree with me that the modern day wedding ceremony and engagement ceremony is many, 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 many miles ahead of the wedding and engagement ceremonies we had back in the day, in our grandmothers and grandfathers' times? Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, so what elements would you say have changed? What elements would you say have changed? Patricia, what elements about the modern day wedding ceremony are different from those that our grandmothers and grandfathers were having? Patricia, I'm waiting.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Please, the deco, the dressing, the
Good.
bridesmaid team.
Exactly. I don't even think in our grandmothers and grandfathers' time there were bridesmaids or best men. It was just the man and the woman and the family.
Yes.
And I even in those times, let's even bring it down to academia. I don't remember professors being able to travel all over the world to attend conferences like we are able to do now.
Yeah.
Because back then, even to even get a plane ticket was a problem.
Yeah.
So even though the events were being held in the past, the nature in which they are being held now are very different. They need more production, more pomp, more pageantry, more different moving parts. Like you are saying, the plenty bridesmaids, the plenty best men, the elaborate car processions, even the venues, right? So the original tradition might have had some key role in the ceremony that they are doing now, because they still have some elements of the old traditions. However, the ritual of performing it, even though it continues, is somewhat different from what they were doing before. So the event manager must realize that events are evolving, such that they cannot be able to treat modern day events like the way they were treated back in the day. So you have to be evolving with the times. So the event that you are hired as an event manager for a hotel or a resort or for an event center or facility, you need to understand that you need to be abreast of the new reinvented versions of the traditional ceremonies that we know. The old ways that we knew events were being managed have changed, and you need to be abreast of the times so that you can be able to continue performing these events and gaining adequate returns from how you are performing it, because it will attract the right people to you. So I know a lot of event organizers and event facilities and centers who were not moving with the times, and they were kicked out by more modern event organizers and facilities operators. right? Previously, before the moving pigs and the Kempinski scheme, people were having events where Mercedes. Where were people having events before we had the Kempinskis and the moving pigs and the unique floral centers? Where were people having events? Mercedes.
Hello?
Yeah. So before we had the Kempinskis and the moving pigs and all those event centers and venues, where were people having events like meetings, and where were they having them?
Some people were having it in their homes.
Okay. And then what about the conferences and the meetings?
Yes.
Okay, so apart from home, so homes are more
They
for the
were having
informal events. What about the formal events? Where were the corporate
the-
people having their events?
Some of them have it in their meeting rooms or.
Good.
Mm,
Good. Exactly. But because the times have evolved, right? People are still having the meetings. True or false? People are still having the meetings. True or false?
true. They are still having
Still
it.
having the meetings, still doing the weddings, still doing the engagement ceremony.
True.
Good. But the nature of it has changed. Even where they have the event has changed. Now the office conference room is there, but they'll rather have the meeting at
Yes.
Fiesta Royale over lunch, over buffet lunch. Good. Good. That is what we mean when we talk about rituals and ceremonies. The ritual of performing it is still continuing. However, the nature of it has what? Evolved.
Changed.
Good. All right. Next, we can also talk about fixed time scale. And this reverts somewhat to the perishability of events, right? Events usually run within a fixed time scale because we call them what? Non-routine activities. Routine activities are done every day, but events are done on a non-routine basis. So they are done within a certain period of time. Now, this period of time could either be very short, like a sword cutting ceremony, which often takes less than 5 minutes, or very long, like an award ceremony, which can take 4 to 5 hours, depending on the kind of award ceremony that you are entering, that you are attending or organizing, and the number of people who are involved. So as an event organizer or event manager, you need to be able to appreciate the nature of time and whether the event should be short or long. Some events, because they are long, have necessitated event managers to come up with smart ways of breaking up the event so that the attendants or participants will not feel the length of time it is taking them to go through the event. So some events may comprise of a sequence of short bursts of activity. For instance, if you are organizing an event like a campus hall week celebration, they will spread it over a week and put different activities on different days. Some events will go over a period of 3 days with different activities happening on each day. Some too will be a one-day event, but there'll be a different activity happening in the morning. Then there will be breakfast or brunch. Then there'll be another activity in the afternoon. And then there'll be another activity at the latter part of the day. These are all elements relating to the fixed time scale of events, depending on the nature of the events that you are organizing and how long it will take to perform every activity that is supposed to be performed during that time frame. But like we mentioned earlier, it is non-routine. So it doesn't happen all the time. Okay. Another characteristic of events we can talk about is labor intensiveness. Events are labor intensive. And the more complex and unique an event is, the more likely it is to be labor intensive to plan and execute. Now let's use a convention as an example. Planning an Easter convention takes almost a whole year because the moment they are done attending the Easter convention in April of that particular year, they start planning the next one. Now, I'm putting this question to you now. What are the kinds of activities that will go into planning an Easter convention? For those of you who serve in church. What kind of activities will go into planning an Easter convention? Is that Momo Boateng? Momo? Momo, can you please unmute your microphone? I want to hear your voice. Is she there? Ruth, is Momo there? But she's not responding.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is 320810? Okay. So those who are online can Hi, Momo. Wow. Okay. So Mercedes or Patricia, help us out. What are some of the activities that will go into planning an Easter convention?
Okay, so we would have to look at the venue.
The venue, yes. Yes, that's a very important aspect. What else? What else?
You have to consider, Doctor.
So when we decide on the venue, and we need to rent some chairs and canopy.
Good, good. That's another aspect. Good. Good. Any other one? Someone mentioned my name.
Yeah.
Yes.
Patricia. And the number of people you are expecting.
Good. That's a very important part because the number of people will determine the size of the venue, the number of chairs, the number of canopies that you will rent, right? Good. That's another very important one. Now, aside renting these events, you have to be able to coordinate so that all these items get to the venue on time, right?
Yes.
Good. You also have to manage how the people get from their various...
Yes, please.
Good. How the people also get from their various locations to the venue.
Venue, yeah.
Good. Now, assuming it's going to be a very long event, you also need to coordinate how you are going to feed and refresh them. So you have to think about food, water, drinks. If they are going to be sleeping overnight, like most of the Easter conventions that people travel to the outskirts of Accra, you have to think of accommodation.
Yeah.
Good. And if you're having it at a different location, you need to be able to find out how you'll be able to get stage equipment to be able to set up a stage and set up microphones and set up a whole production unit to make sure that you're able to record the proceedings. It is a whole set of moving parts which one person cannot execute. You need several people and several vendors to be able to execute something like this. So we say it requires a multitude of products and or services to be delivered to the customer to make sure that an event takes place. And a convention is a typical example. So the lack of management of such an event will lead to what? Chaos. Because there are so many moving parts, so many things happening at the same time that the event manager or organizer has to keep his eye on. And he's one person or she is one person. So event management is all about strategizing and being smart and having a plan in place to make sure that all these moving parts function the way they are supposed to function to make sure that you achieve the objectives of organizing your event. So event management is by no means an easy task. Hence the need for the event organizer to put in place processes for planning, leading, organizing, and controlling. Because if you do not plan and you don't lead all these people who are doing all these different things and organize them in a manner that helps you to achieve your objectives, you will end up having a chaotic situation. And one important thing you need to realize as an event organizer is that to be able to appreciate all these moving parts and get them to work together, you need to be good at what? Communication. Because communication is what helps you to put across the vision that you have and convince them on how best to assist you to achieve that vision. I have gone to events where I have seen event managers and organizers fighting with their staff before. Who has witnessed something like that before? Has anyone here witnessed something like that at an event before?
Yeah.
Yeah. The organizers fighting with staff or one of the participants fighting with the staff, and that is often as a result of poor planning and organizing. Because you get to the event and perhaps the caterer was late, or maybe the person who was supposed to set up didn't come on time, so everything was delayed. These are all issues that can come up if you do not manage the labor intensiveness of event management very well. So that is it for the characteristic of labor intensiveness. Does anyone have a question on that point? Does anyone have a question? Please, can you kindly respond?
No, please.
No, please.
Okay.
No, please.
All right. So we move on to the last characteristic, which is budget requirements. I think this one person can explain it for us. Mashi Okine, are you there?
Yes, Mercedes.
Mercedes, yes. Please, can you explain budget requirements for us off the top of your head?
Hello.
Mercedes. Mercedes. Mercedes, you're breaking up. I can barely hear you. Mercedes, the line is breaking up. Okay. Patricia, can you hear me?
Yes, madam.
It seems Mercedes is having...
I can hear you.
Yeah, but I can't hear you properly. Your connection keeps breaking. Oh, she's gone off. Okay. Patricia, can you help us with the budget requirements?
Okay, doctor.
Yeah.
With the budget requirements, I think every event needs to be planned well. That is the financially.
Yeah.
You have to, put things in place.
Yeah.
Buying in advance, making advanced bookings for the place and other things.
Yeah.
The expenses, how to go about the event.
Good. Good. And that's generally it about budget requirements. Every event has a budget. Even though the organizer or the one funding the event tells you there's no budget. Because in some instances, I have witnessed where event organizers have asked their contractors or customers for the budget and they say, oh, there's no budget. We just want something fantastic. However, at the back of their minds, everybody who is a customer who initiates an event has at the back of their mind how much they want to spend. So event managers and organizers must always keep at the back of their minds that there is a limit to how much they can spend. And events are generally very expensive. So even though the customer who is requesting for the event to be organized does not give you a budget, as an event manager, at the back of your mind, you need to be able to work within a certain budget that you know the customer will not have a problem with once you present them with the invoice or the bill. Another reason why an event manager must restrict themselves to a budget is that expenses for events vary. And depending on the type of event and the time frame within which you have to organize it, as well as the customer's specifications, event expenses can skyrocket to the point where you do not even realize that you are spending so much until you actually sit down to calculate the costs that you have incurred so far. And it is one of the biggest problems that event organizers have. Because sometimes they get carried away and they spend. So budget requirements are an important characteristic of events, because event managers must always know the budget within which they are supposed to work so that they do not exceed it and incur extra expenses that the customer may not be willing to pay for. Please, does it make sense?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Good. So that is it for the characteristics of events. Does anyone have a question you want to ask before we go ahead? Does anyone have a question? Okay. If no one has a question, then we'll proceed. All right. So next, we are going to talk about the classification of events. Now, the events industry is multifaceted and diverse. There are so many different kinds of events that we can talk about. Some are an amalgamation of each other because of the evolving nature of the industry. However, when we try to classify events, there are two main ways we can generally classify them. The first way we can classify them is based on their size. And the second way we can classify them is based on the type of event that it is. So in terms of size of events, we can first of all talk about mega events. Now, mega events are events that sometimes cost in excess of millions of dollars, and they yield extraordinarily high levels of tourism, right? They have a primarily international audience, and they often generate extensive national and international media coverage. So let's look at events like the Olympic Games and the World Cup. Whoever the host nation is of the Olympic Games or the World Cup at a particular point in time gets a lot of people coming from different parts of the world to visit the country. Hence the high levels of tourism. And also, when the event is taking place, you have media from all over the world covering the event, both nationally and internationally. Hence the international audience and the extensive media coverage. Because I know very well that when the Olympic Games and the World Cup are going on, sometimes some television stations block off all their programs and they focus mainly on the event. True or false?
True.
Yeah. So as soon as you turn on your TV, it's World Cup, World Cup, World Cup. For the 1 week or 2 weeks that they're having the World Cup, you hear it all over you on radio, TV, newspapers, everywhere. That is how mega events are. And they also have long-term consequences for the cities and countries that stage them. And that is why you realize that for mega events like the Olympic Games and the World Cup, countries are always competitively bidding to be the one to host the event. Because the moment you host it, your name becomes a global name. Everybody around the world now knows your country. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does.
Good.
It does.
However, when the countries and the cities are bidding, there are certain cost implications that come with this bidding. And these costs are usually associated with the creation of infrastructure and event facilities. I quite remember when Ghana was bidding to host the African Cup of Nations. You remember what happened? They had to build stadia in every major city. Do you remember? Do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
So they had to do the Kumasi Stadium, the Cape Coast Stadium, the Tamale Stadium, and then they even had to refurbish their stadium in Accra. Those are all infrastructure. They even had to build what? They call it supporter villages. You remember? Around the different stadiums to facilitate the activities that will take place during the event. So these are all the characteristics of events that we call mega events. Please, do we understand?
Yes, please.
Good.
Yes, please.
Okay. Next, we can talk about regional or hallmark events. Now, regional or hallmark events are usually designed to increase the appeal of a specific tourism destination or region. So we've all heard of Ogwa Fetu Afashi having to go.
Yes.
What region is it coming from?
From Cape Coast.
Cape Coast, also known as what?
Ogwa.
Good. So the Ogwa Fetu Afashi is an example of a regional event. What about Kwewu Easter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kwewu Easter only became popular, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago, right? Before then, it was not as popular. People used to travel to Abetifi and other towns in Kwewu, but the moment they associated Easter with the place and started investing in different forms of events and entertainment to take place during the period, Kwewu all of a sudden came onto the global map, to the point where people were traveling from places like the US and the UK, Ghana, to make sure that they are able to enjoy the Kwewu Easter. And one of the main events that they usually attract a lot of international tourists is the paragliding event. You know about the Kwewu paragliding event?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
A lot of people come from different parts of the world just for the paragliding during Kwewu Easter. And that is an example of an event that has been designed to increase the appeal of a particular tourism destination, because now Kwewu is on the map both locally and internationally. Hence, we say that regional events are held in the same location every time, such that they become synonymous with the name of the place and gain widespread recognition and awareness for that place. So like we said, now Easter has been permanently associated with what? Easter is permanently associated with where?
Kwewu.
Yeah, and the Fetu Afashe is permanently associated with the Ogwa people.
Yeah.
And this also enhances tourism and has widespread media coverage. Because when it's Kwewu time, as soon as you turn on the radio or the TV, Kwewu, Kwewu. Kwewu. Until the Easter period is over, you don't stop hearing it. Right? So that is an example of a regional or hallmark event. Next, we can talk about major events. Now, although they are not like as big as the mega events, they are also large-scale events to a large extent. And they attract significant public interest and media coverage, even though not as much as the mega events and the regional events. However, they generate significant economic benefits in terms of tourists coming in to participate in the event, to spend money, to revitalize the economy, right? And these major events usually occur on an annual basis, just like some of the regional events that we have seen. Kwewu Easter happens every year. Just like the major events that we are about to discuss, including the Formula One Grand Prix. Formula One Grand Prix happens in Europe. And then the Chinese New Year, which happens around the same time every year, I think in January. And it is a major event for all Chinese people all over the world. To the point where in China, it is a massive celebration. No one goes to work. Everything is shut down. everyone has to go home to their families to celebrate Chinese New Year. And China has in excess of 1.5 billion people. So if 1.5 billion people in January are celebrating an event, you can imagine how major that event is. Momo Boateng, your hand is up. Please, you can speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I wanted to ask about the Chalewate
Yes.
festival.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
We
so in
place
your
that
opinion,
under the
would you call it okay? So
original hallmark event or the major event?
I wouldn't call it a major event. I will call it
Okay.
a minor event because it is primarily targeted at local audiences.
Okay.
Right? Even though it still attracts some foreigners and tourists, it's mainly targeted at the people who are in the country.
Okay. And Doc, considering the fact that it's hosted during the Homowo Festival.
Good. But it is not synonymous with the festival, is it?
Okay.
They have it during that time so that they can benefit of the traffic that the Homowo Festival brings. But it has not been permanently associated with the Homowo Festival. Does it make sense?
True.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it does.
So the Homowo Festival still stands on its own. So I would call the Chalewate Festival a minor event because, like we are seeing on the slide, these minor events are mainly staged for their social, fun, and entertainment value. And that's what happens at Chalewate.
Yeah.
The socialization, the fun among the local people. So
yes,
are
Doc.
you okay now?
I get it.
Good.
Yes, please.
Good. Now, other events that we can place in the same bracket as these local or minor events include parties and celebrations, as well as award ceremonies. The Ghana Movie Awards and RTP Awards, all of them fall into the category of minor local events. So that is it for the classification of events based on their size. Now we are going to look at the classification of events on the type of event. Now, several authors have created different typologies in literature in order to understand the various facets of events, because like we said, events are multifaceted. However, there are two typologies that we will look into today. The first one is the typology of planned events, and the second one is a typology of events based on the level of complexity and uncertainty that the event carries. So let's look at this diagram for a minute. This is the typology of planned events by Getz 1997. Now, he went in on the events and classified them into specific categories with sub-events listed under each category. So here we can identify a total of 8 categories of events, right? Or 8 types of events, including cultural celebrations, under which they have festivals, carnivals, religious events, parades, and so on. He also categorizes arts and entertainment, under which he puts concerts and award ceremonies, as well as exhibits and other performances. Then he also has business and trade events, and these include expositions, conferences, fairs, and publicity events, as well as fundraiser events. And then again, he categorizes sports competitions, both at the professional and amateur level, as a type of event. And we have so many of these around us. He also categorizes educational and scientific events. So here there are so many educational seminars that take place both locally and internationally. We have so many workshops that happen on a daily basis, congresses that take place, as well as interpretive events that take place, all on a daily basis. Then he also talks about recreational events, including amusement events, games and sports. There's an annual event that Disney has in winter that they call the Disney Winter Wonderland. And it's an amusement event for children all over the world, which parents plan to take their children to right from the beginning of the year, right? And we can also talk about political and state events, which also happen almost all the time. They do inaugurations, swearing in, investitures, VIP visits, and then what the political parties do almost all the time, especially when we are nearing election, the political rallies. These are all planned events. Then we can also talk about private events which happen on a more personal and social level. So the wedding anniversary, the dating anniversaries, we have the family holidays, the rites of passage, where people have parties for their daughters when they come of age. They have social events, parties for birthdays, reunions for family members who come from different parts of the world. Momo, your hand is up. Please speak.
Oh, no, I think
It's the old one. Okay.
yes, the old one. Sorry.
Okay. So these are private events, and all of these are planned, because even if you want to have a surprise party for somebody, you need to be able to plan to make sure that it happens the way that you expect for it to happen. If it's a reunion, you need to plan to make sure that whoever is expected to be there for it to be a reunion shows up, right? So these are the different types of events according to Gates that we can look out for when we are classifying or categorizing the various events that happen around us. However, Sean and Parry took a different approach. They classified events depending on the level of complexity, ranging from the individual level to the group level, organizational level, multi-organizational level, national and international levels. And then they compared it as against the level of uncertainty that the event comes with, whether the uncertainty is high or low. So let's look at it from left to right. We can see that on the individual level, at the level where the uncertainty is low, we see things like small private dinner parties.
Mhm.
So that means that if you're having a dinner party, you can classify it as a low uncertainty event that is not very complex. True or false?
True.
Good. However, when you start moving up the ladder of uncertainty, you see things like birthday parties, especially when they are for toddlers and children. Children's birthday parties are some of the most difficult parties to organize. And the level of uncertainty is exactly where they have positioned it. Who has experienced something like that before? Please, it seems someone is sighing out of experience. Children's birthday parties are a headache to organize because you don't know who is
Yes.
going to cry and run away. You don't know who is going to pour the jollof on the floor. You don't know who is going to put their hand into the punch. You don't know who is going to start crying the moment another child gets into the bouncy castle with them. The variables are so many. Anything can change and happen, right? So that's it for birthday parties. And then they put wedding receptions up there at a very high level of uncertainty because weddings in themselves are very complex to organize, although they occur at the individual level. Now, when we move further down, we can see that at the group level, they talk about things like local agricultural shows, which we do not really do in Ghana here. Then carnivals. In Ghana here, the only carnival I heard we ever had was the Osu Street Carnival. And even that was not a proper carnival. And I'll tell you why very soon. Because once we understand the definition of a carnival, we'll see that what people are calling carnivals are actually not carnivals. That's another thing in the event management industry. You need to be able to understand the typology of the event that you are organizing so that you can treat it with that level of seriousness and planning. Please, does it make sense?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So if someone says, for instance, that they're organizing a carnival, there are certain characteristics that we have to see for it to be a carnival. If someone says they're organizing a convention, there are certain characteristics that we have to see for it to be a convention, and so on and so forth. So based on the diagram we can see that as we go further up and further up, the events become more complex and more uncertain. At the organizational level, we can see that at the top, we have political party conferences, which have a fairly high level of uncertainty and high level of complexity, with all the delegates involved and the different factions in the party, right? On the multi-organizational level, we can see things like conventions and fairs, where you have different organizations coming together, and you realize that there's no convention or fair under the multi-organizational level that is presented with a low level of uncertainty. Can we see that? Can we see that from the diagram? All of them have a mid to high level of uncertainty.
Yes, please.
Good. Which tells us that some events by their nature are more complex to organize than others. And it continues as we go further out to national and international events. We realize that all the events moving further out are more complex and going higher up are very uncertain. And at the peak of our graph, we have what? The Olympic what? Games.
Good.
Right? And I will also put the World Cup right up there with the Olympic Games. Because it's another huge mega international event that has a very high level of uncertainty and high level of complexity. Please, are we okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, does anyone have any question they want to ask before we proceed? Momo, your hand is up, or it's the same old one?
I think it's still the old one.
Okay.
But I want to ask,
Yeah.
the high level of uncertainty,
Yeah.
is it because of the complexity in organizing the event?
Yes.
Or
It's
okay.
because of the complexity and the number of moving parts.
Okay.
So you need a high level of planning.
Okay.
Because even with your expert planning, there are still a number of aspects you can't control. Like for instance, you can't control if a participant hurts themselves.
Okay.
Or you also can't control if someone in the audience decides to become rowdy and incites the others to violence.
Okay.
Good. Please, does anyone have anything else to ask? Patricia, are you okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we can proceed. Mercedes, are you good?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's proceed. So now let's look at some specific types of events. Remember, we mentioned some types of events under the typology of planned events. We also mentioned some here. And I indicated that certain events are being classified wrongly, especially in our context, because people do not know what it entails to call a particular event by a specific name. So we are going to look at examples of these events and what they actually are. So first, let's start with carnival. Now, the word carnival stems from the practice of feasting on meat and the associated revelry before the fasting that is required during the period of Lent, which precedes Easter. Now, this is a tradition that goes way back into history. Again, talking about the rituals and ceremonial characteristic of what? Events. Carnivals evolved out of all the fun that people will usually have, anticipating that they are about to embark on fasting. So they have to eat all the food that they can, enjoy themselves as much as they can before they set on the fast. So all carnivals are supposed to happen before or during the period, before the period of Lent, right before Easter. And it is a celebratory event centered on public participation. So carnivals revolve around people's participation in events. It's not like a conference where people can just go and sit down and watch the people talking and just listen to them. No, carnivals thrive on everybody participating and having fun. In that instance, it is characterized by periods of merriment and revelry. So everybody is having fun, eating, drinking. That's why you see carnivals and there's so much food and drink and dancing and music all over the place, because it's supposed to be a period of merriment and revelry. And it also includes, this is one important aspect of carnivals, people dressing up in beautiful costumes and wearing masks, right? All a symbol or representation of the merriment and enjoyment that they are having. Now, a typical example of a carnival we can talk about is the Rio Carnival, which is actually the oldest carnival in the world and the largest. It is held every year and starts on the Friday before Ash Wednesday and ends at noon on Ash Wednesday. You see the timing? Good. It's around the period of Lent, just before Easter. And it's the same for the Mardi Gras. Who knows about the Mardi Gras carnival in New Orleans?
Yeah, Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras happens also around the same time, around the Lent period, just before Easter. However, the Rio Carnival is considered the biggest in the world, with almost about 2 million people per day on the streets of Rio de Janeiro attending this carnival. So that shows you how big it is, right? So briefly, I want to show you a snippet of this carnival and what it can look like. I'm sharing something new with you. Can you see it? Can you see the screen that I'm sharing with you now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Can we see the level of intricacy that is involved in this event?
Yeah.
Even the human beings. You see the number of human beings over there.
Yeah.
Those who are just spectators, those who are performing, those who are sitting on the banisters, those who are sitting in the seats, in the pavilions. Millions of people. Imagine organizing such an event. It will take you months. And this event happens every year. You see the intricacies of the floats that they have. This one has water pouring from it. I wonder where the water is coming.
Wow.
And these are all events that take place. And when you look at the background of how these events are put together, you realize that there's an intricate, complex team of event managers and organizers working all the moving parts. So there's someone who is in charge of organizing the seating and the selling of the tickets to the events. There's someone in charge of organizing the floats and making sure that everybody knows where they are supposed to be in terms of the floats and where they are supposed to come. Everybody who is engaged in this event is making sure that everyone works at the time that they have been given. Otherwise, it will affect the whole timing of the entire 2 or 3 day event. Event managers and organizers are even behind the design of the costumes. Because you realize that each float has a unique theme. Do you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Each float has a unique theme. And it's up to the event organizers to sit down and plan all these things. What themes do we want to see? What intricate designs do we want to see? Bless Ruth Ajete, your hand is up.
Yes, Doc.
Yes.
I just want to know, so the one that we used to attend at the Oxford Street,
Yes.
how will we call that?
Now
that I can see.
I will call it a fair. Because usually organized for buying and selling.
The difference is huge.
It's huge. Yes, they're calling it a carnival.
Carnival, yeah.
So for those who don't know what a carnival is, that is their carnival. That's their standard.
Thanks for sharing.
So this is a carnival to my sisters.
Doc.
Yes, please speak up.
Please, I hope you are going to organize a trip for us to attend this type of carnival.
Our borders are on lockdown.
Yes, please.
No, not now. Maybe later.
Yeah, we can do that. Why not? We will go as University of Ghana students.
Okay.
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 And experience it. Yes. All we have to do is to assure them that if they give us the visa, we'll come back.
Sure.
Because recently some
Okay.
students traveled
Actually
with
come
us
back.
and they didn't come back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they put us into trouble.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it was so bad that some students were going to Denmark. The international business students were going. Some students were going to the US for educational tour. They rejected almost everybody.
Oh.
Yes, because they said some people had defaulted earlier. Our dean had to go and beg.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we'll just assure them that if they make us, we'll come back. Yes, we have to experience it
Yeah.
because this float. I mean,
It's beautiful.
I really want to experience it. Wow.
And I'm told this is just one aspect of it. When you actually go into the streets of the town, the party,
Yeah.
the food, the drinks.
The drink. Ooh.
So if you are not someone who enjoys alcohol, this may be the only part of the thing you will enjoy. The float. Because for those who enjoy alcohol, the party in the streets is where it's happening. Right? But for us, we are just going to take in the beauty of all these intricate designs and floats.
Yeah.
I think it's a marvelous sight.
It
It's
is.
a marvelous
Very
sight.
beautiful.
Okay, so do you want to watch it to the end or we should move on?
Doc, please, I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
So in understanding specifically what a carnival is,
Yes.
does it mean that it has to be like this real carnival, or if it is celebrated after Easter?
The,
Like
the telltale signs is when it's before Easter, that length.
okay.
And then
Yes. So assuming they say the carnival, we say okay, we are having a carnival in Ghana, a street carnival, and celebrated before Easter.
Yes.
But we don't have all these.
And we are missing a key component of the carnival.
Yes, please.
Yes, because the closest I've seen them come is when those kakamoto people. Have you seen those kakamoto people? The ones that scare the children and they collect.
Yes.
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 That's the only thing that comes close to this that I've seen at Easter time. But even that is not organized. They do it on an individual basis. And they go from house to house.
Okay.
Right? Yes. Momo, your hand is out.
Yes, I just.
Oh,
asked
okay.
the question.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. So should we watch to the end?
We want to go and see the real one.
Okay. All right. So that is it for the carnival, right? The next thing we can talk about is the conferences. And these ones are a bit more formal. They're not as informal as the carnival. And conference is a term which generally implies that the primary function of the event is the exchange of ideas. So when we say conference, your mind immediately goes to the formality and the seriousness of the interaction that will be going on. And they are assemblies for the purpose of conferring and discussion. And they are usually small enough to facilitate interaction. So even if you go for a conference, for instance, like annually, I like to go for the Academy of Marketing conference in Europe. And when you go, we are thousands of people from different parts of the world who come. And to be able to facilitate the interaction, they break us up into small sessions based on our specific fields of research so that we can be able to interact with each other and share the research that we are doing and exchange ideas. So that is what we say when we mean the assemblies have to be small enough to facilitate interaction and discussion. Now, like I just mentioned, conferences are usually common in academia and in the world of politics, where academics hold numerous themed conferences on specified topics or themes of broad interest within a field of study. So in the University of Ghana, for instance, there's a very popular conference that almost everybody in the business school likes and attends. And it's called the AABD conference. It's the Association of African Business and Development. It's the Academy of African Business and Development, conference. And currently, Dr. Kobi Mensah is the secretary of the academy, and I think Dr. Abugre is the treasurer, one of them. Yes. So your coordinator is the secretary of this conference. Are you there?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you'd be excited. Hey, this is a big deal.
Yes, so.
Yes, yeah. We don't want to show it.
So the AABD is held
We are very excited, but we don't want to show it.
Yes, I can see. Right. So it's mainly to facilitate multidisciplinary research between African researchers. So if you are an African researcher and you are teaching in the US or the UK or Romania, any other part of the world, the AABD brings all of us together to interact and share ideas and present our papers and then be able to collaborate on research in the future. And it's mainly aimed at broadening and deepening global understanding of the various issues that are relevant to us in our development as Africans. And at the same time, to proffer solutions to the problems that we have identified on our continent, being that we are researchers. So that is what the AABD conference is about. In fact, this year's one was supposed to take place on May 19th to 23rd, but unfortunately, because of COVID, it was cancelled. We are yet to have a new date. However, if you are able to attend any conference, I believe this is the conference that you should start with as graduate students. It's a good experience for you to meet people who are like you. In fact, Dr. Kobi Mensah is in this picture. Can you see him? I'm pointing at him. Can you see? In the
Madam, please zoom.
Okay, let me zoom it.
Madam, please zoom.
Let me zoom it. Can you see him?
Hey.
You can see him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See? I told you. I didn't even know he was in the picture. See? I told you. That's the center. So that's it for conference. Now, another one we can talk about is a convention. Now, a convention is very similar to a conference. However, conventions are also largely informal. So they do not rely on formal interaction. They rely more on informal exchanges between participants, where participants are free to engage with whomever, dress however they want to dress. So when you enter the place, it's more of a serene environment of people having the freedom to be themselves. And there are often large gatherings of people who are fans of a particular event or idea or concept, or of those of a particular sect or faith, like associations, political parties, clubs, or religious groups. So the Christians have their Easter convention that they always attend unfailingly, right? Then we have the fans of other things like the comic books and the comic book characters who attend the Comic-Cons. Who has heard of Comic-Con?
No.
So Comic-Con is the short form for the comic book convention. Please, has anyone seen a comic book before? You haven't seen a comic book before?
Doctor,
Yes.
please, is it the one with the cartoon picture and some writings?
Yes, that's a comic book. And you know now, because of the evolving times, they are turning all the comic books into movies.
Yeah.
So we have the Superman movie, the Wonder Woman movie, the Avengers movie. Who has seen any of these movies I've mentioned? Aha. These are all comic book characters. So the comic convention is where all the people who like these characters go to show that they are true fans of the characters. And because of the informal nature of the convention, they go there dressed up as the characters.
Okay.
Good. Now, when they go to these conventions, they are able to have educational sessions, right? Social functions and meetings to conduct the governance business of their organization. So, for instance, if a church has an Easter convention, by the time they come back, they would have discussed the plans for next year's Easter convention. True or false?
Doctor, please come again.
I was saying that, for instance, when people go for Easter conventions, during the 3-day period or the 2-day period that they are there, they have individual meetings to discuss church matters. True or false?
True.
Yes. And that is a typical characteristic of a convention. When you go to these comic book conventions as well, they also have panel sessions. In fact, the people in Hollywood have been able to rely on this event, the comic book convention, to be able to launch all their major blockbuster movies. So the Avengers movies that we watch and the Superman movies that we watch, before they come out the following year, they have already been debuted and discussed at Comic-Con the year before.
Yeah.
So they have panel sessions over there and they discuss the characters, and then the actors who play the characters in the movies go to the convention to interact with their fans. And these events typically recur every year. So for the Comic-Con that I'm talking about, for instance, it happens at the same time in July every year during summer. Please, are we okay?
Yes, please.
Good. So that is it for the comic book convention, also known as what? Comic-Con. So I wanted to show you a brief video of Comic-Con so that you can have an idea of what Comic-Con is about and the way the fans dress up like their favorite characters. So I'm going to show you. Please let me know if you can see it. Please, can you see it?
No, please.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's showing now.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's watch this. So you see that as they are showing the pictures of the people dressed up, they are showing the different characters that the names of the characters they are dressed up as. Please, you see that?
Yes.
Does any of them look familiar?
Madam, is that pirate?
Pirates of the Caribbean. Good, you've seen it. Okay, what about this one?
Is that Spider-Man?
Spider-Man. Who is this lady dressed as?
Hey.
This is the second Thor movie.
Oh, okay.
Good, and that's Iron Man. So you see, and you see the number of people who are there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So many people, and these are all fans of the comic book characters.
Yes.
You see, so the scale of the event alone. Imagine planning such an event. So there's no way you can do this every day or every other week or every month. They only happen once a year. Please, are we okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So that is it for conventions. That's what conventions look like. So like I said earlier, the Comic-Con was first held in 1970, far back that time, right? And it's just a gathering of fans of entertainment and comic books, which happens every year. And it happens over 4 days, from Thursday to Sunday. So people have 4 days to live all their fantasies, all the characters they see on TV that they want to dress as. So someone can decide that Thursday should dress as Iron Man, Friday should dress as Superman, Saturday should dress as Spider-Man, and every day a new character. And because it's a convention, there are people who are also selling the costumes, people who are selling comic books, people who are animators, drawing, there's so much that is happening at the convention, but all of it is related to the comic books. The same thing for Easter convention. When you go to Easter convention, you can buy your anointing oil, your white handkerchief, your holy water. Right, because it's a convention, so everything connected with the blood of, hey, you can even buy your communion wine. Everything connected with the blood of Jesus and the resurrection, you can buy from there. So that's it for convention, right? Then we can talk about exhibitions. Now, exhibitions, I think we have seen some in Ghana before. Has anyone attended a Ghanaian exhibition before?
Yeah.
Yeah, one or two, eh? Okay, so exhibitions are usually events that signify a display of artifacts. So it can be an art exhibition or car exhibition. Syriatex usually has exhibitions where they showcase the products from the artifacts from Syria. So carpets, furniture, interior decor, and the rest, right? Now, when we talk about exhibitions, we can have two types of exhibitions. We have consumer exhibitions and trade shows. The consumer exhibitions are also known as consumer shows, and these are often open to the general public, but they have to pay a small admission fee to be able to gain admission. And they are usually built around popular themes, which are linked to things that people like or enjoy as their hobbies, like automobiles, travel and recreation, electronics, pets. There are so many hobbies that they can build exhibitions around, depending on who the organizer is and the revenue that they see that they can generate from organizing the exhibition. Whereas we have trade shows, which are usually for invitees only. So if you are not part of an association or work for a particular company that gets invited to such trade shows, you will never get invited as an individual. Please, does it make sense?
Yes, it does.
Good. So it's based on specific business needs, right? Or association membership by manufacturers or suppliers who are trying to sell their products or services. This usually happens when it comes to industrial goods, engineering, or healthcare, right? So you find out that there's a trade show for hospital equipment. And then the people who get invited are the people who actually own hospitals and clinics and medical research labs and so on and so forth. Please, does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So one typical example of a consumer show that I really like, I just watch it for fun, but I thought it's a good one to bring in here, is the Tokyo Car Show. Now, the Tokyo Car Show or Motor Show is held once every 2 years. And it brings together automobile producers to show new concepts and ideas, as well as engineering of the future. So it's likely that some of the cars and the automobiles that you see at this event, you may never see again in your life. Or you may only see when you go to certain countries of the world. In fact, some of these cars and automobiles that are shown at the exhibition are only used in countries like Japan and China. Because if they bring them to our part of the world, we can't use them because of the level of technology that they use. In Japan, for instance, a lot of them are no longer using petrol or diesel cars. They are mostly using electric and hybrid cars. So a lot of the cars you see at these conventions are electric cars, hybrid cars, next generation cars, right? And it takes a long time to develop these automobiles. So they can't have the show every year. They need to give the people enough time to come up with more innovations. So it is known for its high concentration of concept vehicles over traditional production models, because a lot of the people present their concepts that they are working on as a form of innovation, which they have not yet commercialized. Please, does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to show you a brief video of the Tokyo Car Show for you to see how it plays out. I hope that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so let's see the Tokyo Car Show quickly. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Great.
Well, Welcome to the 2019 Tokyo Motor Show. This is a different kind of show. It doesn't happen every year. It happens every 2 years. It's my very first time here. I was kind of warned before I came. It's not going to be like a typical auto show with just shiny new cars. It's all about the future of mobility, because auto shows have changed around the world, and the Tokyo show wants to be different, to show you what is possible, not just about your car, but how you get there. Toyota is the largest player in Japan, and they're also the worldwide partner for next year's 2020 Olympic Games held right here in Tokyo. As the mobility partner, they're bringing mobility to all, from car enthusiasts to Paralympians. The biggest head turner was the introduction of the Mirai fuel cell concept. This concept looks production ready, and the production model will start to be produced by the end of 2020. With a larger, all-new fuel cell platform able to drive 30% farther than the current Mirai, this stylish and sleek sedan will abandon the idea that a future fuel cell has to look different. This just looks fantastic. The interesting part is this should be a performer too, because this is a rear-wheel drive car. I asked the chief engineer why they went to a rear-wheel drive platform.
So we had multiple selections of platform, but considering the driving range, the cabin, the roominess, and also the styling. We did a lot of study, and we came up to this packaging, which fit to this rear-wheel drive platform. We basically developed everything from scratch, and our intention was to people to think that, oh, I want this car, is our initial priority for this development.
Toyota also showcased mobility in the form of scooters, a unique wheelchair tow motor that allows the wheelchair to be pulled along, then left behind for another rider to use. The iRoad has been out for a while, but this was the first time I had a chance to drive this rear steer, three-wheel tandem electric city people mover. Okay, my first time in the iRoad. This is cool because the car.
So do you see the scale of the event? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, do you see the scale of the event?
Yes.
The number of people and all the moving parts. So they have the part where they are showcasing the cars of the future and the engineering. And then they have the part where they are showing things like the mobility equipment, being the wheelchairs and things that will help the disabled move around easier. And then they have the arena where he currently is, where they are test driving all these new cool concepts in mobility.
Yeah.
And you can only experience this when you travel all the way to Tokyo. They don't have it anywhere else.
Oh, okay.
And it happens only once every 2 years. And all these things that they are showing there, like I said, is technology of the future. All this fuel cell technology is all about electric cars. Ghana has not come anywhere close to even thinking about electric cars, let alone using them.
Oh, madam.
Oh, have you seen an electric car here before? You don't even have the infrastructure to use that kind of car in Ghana.
They said the Spice has one.
Pardon?
I heard the Spice has one.
How does he use it?
They say he goes to charge it.
Because unless he sets up a charging station in his house. Because otherwise, there's no other charging station in any other part of Accra or wherever he travel for him to go and be charging along the way. Now, do you see some of the new cars that they are showcasing? Yeah. I mean, look at this.
Yeah.
By the time we see this car in Ghana, I don't know. But I usually watch this motor show. I watch it online all the time, and it is for my relaxation and recreation because it lets me know what is possible. Yeah. And it also gives me an idea of the level and scale of events that Ghanaians can organize. Because there are people in Ghana who love cars. Recently, I came across a group called the F50 Gang. and they are a bunch of gentlemen who own BMW F50 cars. Joanne, your hand is up. Did you have something to say? Please speak up. Joanne. Joanne, I can't hear you. Okay, your hand is back down. Okay, so this F50 gang, I saw them at the Marina Mall area where the airport shell is, and they had all parked their BMWs in a long line, about 10 to 12 cars, and they were all wearing the same t-shirt that said F50 BMW gang. I said, wow, so there are enthusiasts like that in Ghana here. So imagine an event organizer or an event company coming up with the idea of organizing a car exhibition of this nature, because they're already organizing it themselves on an informal level. So imagine commercializing it and turning it into an event where other people who also equally love cars can come and participate, right? So this is a good example of an exhibition where you can get people to participate and enjoy their hobbies. Again, like I said, there are different exhibitions at different parts of the world for different hobbies that people engage in. So they even have exhibitions for people who like to knit, exhibitions for people who own pets, exhibitions for people who love flowers, right? And so on and so forth. So that is it for exhibition. Then we can talk about fairs. Please, can we see the slide now?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Then we can talk about fairs. So like I said, what we went to on the Oxford Street is a fair. It's a gathering held at a specified time and place for the buying and selling of goods. But that is all that they do, they're buying and selling. It is often of medieval origins, and the central theme is basically trading. So people go there to trade, right? So in Ghana here, the larger scale of what we see happening on the Oxford Street often happens at the Ghana International Trade Fair Center, what they call the trade fair, right? And this carries forward the central theme of trading within the restrictions of a particular industry or subsector. So you see that they will have a trade fair that is perhaps built around the agricultural industry, or a trade fair that is built around the manufacturing industry, right? However, there is little emphasis on leisure side shows. So when you go there, you shouldn't expect to find entertainment. It is mainly organized just for people to trade. So a typical example of a fair that I thought was genius when they started it some years back and are still doing is the home and property fair. Mikasa started this when they established their property rent and sale platform. Please, who has heard of Mikasa? Has anyone heard of Mikasa?
Yes.
Good.
Have you seen their billboard?
Good, good. So they built a platform that people could use to, that could bring together the buyers and sellers and renters and leasers of property with people who are looking for such property to rent or buy. And based on that, they started the home and property fair. And I think that concept has been replicated by companies like Ghana Home Loans, who also have their own housing and property fair that they do, right? So this is an example of a fair that brings together buyers and sellers, and they are basically trading in home and property related stuff. So when you go to a fair like this, you should expect to see people who sell land, people who are selling already built houses. Pardon? Did someone say something? Okay. So at such a fair, you can expect to see, like I said, people who are selling land, selling already built houses, people who are renting, people who are leasing. All that has to do with the buying and selling of homes and property, you will find at their home and property fair. And next, we can talk about festivals. And festivals are usually sacred or secular times of celebration that are marked by special observances. And they are one of the most common forms of cultural celebration, many of which are traditional and have long histories, right? Like a lot of the festivals that we celebrate in Ghana, the Bakatue Festival, the Odura Festival, the Kundum Festival. All of these have long histories that are linked to certain special observances. For instance, some of the festivals are characterized by, which one do they usually go in search of the antelope? Which one do they go and hunt the antelope? Is it Obira or Bakate?
Abuatri.
Abuatri, thank you.
Yeah.
So that is a special observance of Abuatri. They always have to go in search of the antelope and bring back an antelope. Otherwise, the festival will not be complete. Some of them are also marked, especially those that take place in the fishing communities, like the Kundum Festival and the Ogua Festival. They are marked by boat races, by the fishermen, right, on the beaches. These are all special observances that characterize festivals. There are also some parades and processions, which are also common elements in festivals. Like we said with the Abuatri, when they catch the animal, the group that caught the animal has to go on a procession throughout the principal streets of the town with the animal for everyone to see that they are the people who caught it. True or false?
True.
Yes. Now, many of the other major types of events, especially art and entertainment, are also frequently found within festivals. So you see that as part of a festival, they will invite artists like Shatawale and Wendy Shea to come and do their thing to entertain the participants at the festival. Like I mentioned earlier too, they also do certain sports and recreational events, right? Like the boat races. They also have soccer matches. Some of them even have beauty pageants, like Miss Golden Stool for the Ashanti region. Please, are we okay?
Yeah.
Good.
Now, I wanted to introduce you to a particular festival that started in India and Nepal and has now become a global phenomenon among so many people all over the world, and it's called the Holi Festival. Now, the Holi Festival is simply the festival of color, and it's used to mark the changing of the seasons in India. Now, the festival was so much fun and engaging that people all over the world have come to incorporate it as part of their culture, such that the Holi Festival is not just had in India and Nepal by the Hindus and the Sikhs anymore. It's had by people all over the diaspora. So it's basically celebrated by people gathering together in their masses, dancing, having fun, and then splashing themselves with pigments of color. Now, briefly, I want to show you a short video that depicts how this thing happens. Please, are we ready for it? Please, are we ready for the video?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Please.
Okay.
It would be lovely to watch.
All right. So let's see it. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Please, can we see what is happening? Please, can we see what is happening?
Yes, please.
So
Yes.
this is all they go there to do. This is all the festival is about.
Wow.
Making a mess of themselves
Wow.
for the whole day.
It looks fun.
It looks fun.
I can't wait to have this with my course mates.
Maybe after graduation.
I have to organize this. I have to organize this.
What craziness is this? And you know, white people, anything that involves craziness, you find them. How many black people have you seen in the whole video I'm showing you? Let's see if we can count.
We'll be the pioneers.
Right, and this is a whole festival. They do it unfailingly every year, all over the world.
Oh, look at the dog.
Everybody is involved. The color is everywhere. You can't come back home clean.
The dog. Wow.
That's beautiful.
Okay, I finally seen one black person.
Yes. We are not that bad. We like fun too.
Yeah, we've tried. There's one person. So this is the Holy Festival, right? And I saw this festival and I was like, this festival doesn't take much to organize.
At all.
You just need to spread the word. It lets people know that we are meeting here and we are going to bring your bag of color or bring your bag of
Yeah.
We are just going to splash everybody.
Yeah.
Because that's all they are doing. I don't see any food vendors around. I don't see any water sellers, nothing. All I see is the stage where they've set up the music equipment.
I'm definitely going to do this.
And the rest is just jumping around and splashing each other. They are letting loose. Right? And that is a typical example of how an event can be organized to create so much fun with very little fuss. Please, does it make sense?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that is the Holy Festival. Now, the next and last type of event we are going to talk about, because if we say we are talking about all of them, we will not finish, is the sporting events.
Okay.
Now, the sporting events are very popular because these ones, we see them around us all the time. People everywhere have experienced one kind of sports event or another. And it's usually held within territories and attracts international sportsmen and women to participate, often on a competitive level, to win certain prizes. Now, when we talk about sporting events, we can mention tournaments and championships. Now, tournaments are usually sport events organized to select a winner from participating players or teams through various rounds of competition. And we usually see this with the tennis players. So they start and they do various rounds of competition and they keep eliminating until they get to the final level where they select a winner. Then we can also talk about championships where there are playoffs within leagues and they play to select winning teams again and then eliminate the weak teams and then come to the final with two top performers who then compete for the title. And we see this all the time with football, where we have the UEFA Champions League, we have the is it now called the Barclays Premier League? It's no longer the Barclays Premier League, is it? No, it's not. The sponsorship has changed. So the British Premier League, if you mean. So one sport event that I want us to take note of is Wimbledon. And Wimbledon is one of the oldest tennis tournaments in the world. And it's also considered to be the most prestigious because it is still played on the lawn where the first game of tennis was played. And that is how tennis got its name of lawn tennis. So it's a very prestigious tournament that a lot of tennis enthusiasts like to go and watch. And it is always happening at the same place in Wimbledon. So please, before we go ahead, I want to ask you this question. Based on the fact that the Wimbledon Championships happen at the same place all the time, and Wimbledon has become famous as one of the most prestigious tournaments, what type of event, based on the size of the event, can we say the Wimbledon Championship is? Is it a mega event, regional event, major event, or minor event? This one is for 5 points.
Sure.
Which one will it be? Is it a mega event, regional event, major event, or minor event? Use the characteristics of the tournament. We said it is always held at Wimbledon. And it is considered the most prestigious tournament. Momo?
Doc,
Yes, it
I'll
is.
say it's a regional event.
It's a regional event. Thank you. Because Wimbledon
Yay,
has
5 points for Momo.
yeah, 5 points for Momo. It's now synonymous with the place, such that the tournament is called Wimbledon.
Yes.
So congrats, well done.
Thank you.
Now, what are the motives for people participating in events? People usually participate in events for so many reasons. And because of that, we cannot use any of the traditional motivation theories to explain why people participate in events. So we can't say something like Maslow's hierarchy of needs will be able to tell us why someone will participate in an event. So the need for a classification of motives should take into consideration the diverse nature of the motives that the participants have participating in an event. Hence, we are relying on the classification by Schoen and Parry 2010 to explain the motives by which people participate in an event. Now, according to Schoen and Parry 2010, the motives at the basic level are both primary and secondary. And these primary and secondary motives can either be social, physiological, personal, or organizational. So let's break down the different aspects that we are talking about. With regard to primary and secondary motives, we are saying that at the basic level, the primary motive for a person wanting to participate in an event is social. People participate in events for the purposes of socialization. Because when they go to events, they get to meet people, they get to talk to people, they get to interact with people. And through this interaction, they are able to achieve another primary level of motive, which is what? Relaxation.
Relaxation.
Because some people are stressed when they are by themselves and all alone. They feel lonely. But the moment they are among people and they get to discuss with people and interact with them and have fun, they relax and they de-stress. True or false?
True.
Good.
True.
Some people too attend events for the primary motive of what? Even though they want to socialize, it extends towards what? Status building.
Yeah.
Because some people have to be at certain happening events. Like the way Cardi B came to Ghana and some celebrities said they were not invited. It was a social event, and based on their status, they should have been there, but they were not invited.
There.
So they went on a social media rant, right? So this is a prime example of how people attend events for the purposes of their what, status. Because whoever was there was it. And the Kwapin Polo came out of nowhere and stole the show.
Ajay.
Okay, but another motive that people engage in, which is linked to socialization when they attend events, is learning. Especially when I go for a conference. I go for a conference because I want to socialize with people who are working in my field, in academia. However, I also go there to learn from them. So learning is a secondary motive that we can say people engage in events for. And then another very important motive for why people go to events. They go to events to socialize and at the same time be what? Entertained.
Entertained.
Yeah. So people go to weddings for entertainment. I know some friends of mine when we were younger, when they go to these weddings and parties, they entertain themselves by ranking outfits and looks. So they would rank everybody who comes to the event based on what they are wearing, the shoes they are wearing, the hair. That's how they entertain them. And they'll do that the whole day till they leave the event and go home. That's their source of entertainment. Some people too go to weddings just to go and dance. They're dancing. That's their source of entertainment. So they can't wait for the whole vows and everything to end for them to get to the reception and get on the dance floor.
Madam, it's true.
They should go for food.
Yes, the dance floor. Some people go for food. Thank you, my sister. So these are some of the basic motives for why people participate in events. But beyond that, there are certain higher level motives why people participate, which so these primary and secondary motives can also be classified again: social, organizational, physiological, and personal motives. So for instance, under social motives, like we said, people go there for social interaction. They go there to create community spirit. And they also go there for status or recognition. Like I said, the slave queens who were not invited to the Cardi B event, they were not recognized. They were angry because they are slave queens. They have to be recognized and invited. Some people too go there for the purposes of philanthropy, right? Or charitable contributions. People attend events. I know for me, for instance, I go to funerals just to give is it in San?
Yes.
After I eat alcohol, I don't eat, I don't drink, I don't socialize, I don't do anything. I go there I greet and express my condolences, give my insa, and I leave. So that is a social motive, right? Some people to engage for physiological motives. Like we said, some people go to these events just to relax and enjoy themselves. Some people to go there for sexual enjoyment with others. I know when we were in secondary school, a number of the boys used to go to the concerts and stuff just to get innocent young women to mess around with. Some people to go for the exercise or the physical challenge. If they were having a marathon now, someone will join the marathon because they want to exercise or lose weight. Some people too, like our dear sister said, go there to eat and drink and be entertained. I know some people who have never used their own money to buy alcohol before. But when you see them at people's parties, the way they drink, and they go for the most expensive
Very
drink.
true.
So that's a physiological motive, right? Some people too go for physical motives. And these ones are usually in relation to the corporate events. For instance, someone will go to a party that they are having, not because they want to go enjoy themselves, but because there's a cardinal buyer or customer that they are targeting who will be at that event. So they go there to socialize and engage that person in conversation and then sow the seeds for the future sale that they are going to make. Some people too attend these events to present an organizational presence. So your boss will say, perhaps the government is having a dinner and we have been invited, so I need you to go and represent the company. Some organizations too always like to be associated with certain events or attend the event so that they can be recognized. And some people too attend these events just to give sponsorship. And then we can talk about personal motives, where people just attend on the personal level to learn, like I said, and gain education for the attending of conferences among academics. I can say most of them largely go for learning and education. Some of them too go for creativity and exploration because we go to see how creative people are getting in our fields of expertise and the new things that they are doing. Some people too go there to fulfill ambitions. I remember the first international conference that I attended was during my PhD time. And my supervisor told me that you cannot call yourself a PhD holder until you have gone to an international conference, a high-ranking one in our field, and you have presented your work and you have been critiqued. So for me, attending that conference was a way of fulfilling an ambition that I had been given to prove that I was actually a deserving PhD candidate. Please, does it make sense?
Yes.
Good. So these are the different motives for which people engage in events or participate in events. Does anyone have anything they want to add before we move on? We are in the final stretch. There's nothing. Okay, then let's proceed. So now that we have been able to understand what events are, the nature of events management, the characteristics of events, the different types of events that there are, we looked at a few of them. And we also looked at the motives for which people participate in events. We now want to understand why we are linking events management with hospitality and tourism. Now let's first talk about hospitality and events management. Now the term hospitality generally refers to the hotel, restaurant, and entertainment industry. So when we mention hospitality, we mean that all the activities that encapsulate these three sectors, namely the hotel, restaurant, and entertainment sector. Now, when it comes to events and how they relate to hospitality, hospitality can generally be understood to include all the products and services that are offered to consumers of an event. So you realize that when we have an event, like say the Tokyo Motor Show or the Carnival, which we are planning on going in Rio de Janeiro to observe, we will have to engage with the hospitality industry throughout the process of consumption and experience creation. For instance, when we get to Rio de Janeiro, we need a place to stay, true or false?
True.
So we are likely to book a hotel or a motel. When we get there too, we have to eat. So definitely we will go to one restaurant or the other, or perhaps use the restaurant in the hotel or the motel that we are staying at. We will also need some entertainment. In fact, we are going there purposely for the entertainment of being able to see the elaborate floats and the performances that are going to be part of the carnival. True or false?
True.
True.
Good. So in that essence, we are saying that the hospitality industry and the event industry go together such that you can't have events without hospitality. So events will always include things like overnight stays, food and drink, venues or locations for hosting the event. And in that instance, hospitality runs through the planning and organizing all the way from before the event to during the event and after. Please, does it make sense?
Yes, please.
Yes, it does.
Great. Now, with regard to tourism and events management, we are saying that according to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, tourism is a social, cultural, and economic phenomenon which entails the movement of people to countries or places outside of their usual environment for not more than 1 year for either personal, business, or professional purposes. So in that case, tourism provides opportunities for people to organize events more often and for diverse and multicultural environments. Because the Rio de Janeiro Carnival that we are planning on attending, for instance, it's outside of our usual environment. And it's not organized just for people like us who are coming from an African background. It's organized for people who are from all manner of backgrounds. And it entails a number of events. Like I said, the float and the elaborate display that we just watched are one aspect of the events that are organized. They also have the street parties that they organize. That are also different sets of events targeted at different people. However, events act as important motivators for tourism. Because if there's no event, people will not have a reason to go to any destination as tourists most of the time. True or false?
True.
True. So if there is no conference happening in Europe, I have no reason to travel to Europe. If this carnival was not happening in Brazil, we have no reason to go to Brazil. So it makes tourism mostly dependent on the effective management of events. Because assuming the management of these events were not effective, they will not be put up in such a beautiful and elaborate manner to attract us to even visit these destinations. And that is how come we are saying that events are motivators for tourism and that the tourism industry depends a lot on effective events management. Please, does it make sense?
Yes, it does.
Good. So what is the significance of events management in the hospitality industry? We are saying that events management is a function of the hospitality industry, such that hospitality is a core component in every event and therefore contributes to the satisfaction of all the people who are participating in the event, right from where they are staying to what they are eating to how they are being entertained to sometimes even how they get to move around. And this significance of hospitality with regard to events contributes to the retention or non-retention of participants and visitors of an event. Imagine we go to Rio de Janeiro and regardless of how much we enjoy the carnival, the hotel that we stayed at was terrible. And we could not find any hotel to stay at. Would we want to go back?
No. Nope.
Good. So in that case, it has affected the retention because we don't plan to go back anymore. In the same case, it has affected the carnival because they will not get us to attend the carnival anymore just because the hospitality was poor. Can we see the link?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. So proper event management contributes in building the reputation of the various players in the hospitality industry, such that if the event is managed properly, it affects the reputation of the event organizers, of the country, of the hotels that the people stay in, of the restaurants that they stay in. Everybody is affected if the event is not well managed. So you realize that people who organize events go as far as to even add the hospitality aspect. To the point where, for instance, if you're attending a conference, they'll give you a list of hotels that they have partnered with that you can stay at and expect excellent service. Sometimes they'll even give you a discount on your accommodation. Who has experienced that before? Has anyone experienced that before? You haven't? Okay. So for those of us who attend academic conferences, like me, for instance, when I attend conferences, the conference will usually give you a list of the hotels in the area of the venue where they are having the event, where you can stay at, to help you to get to the conference easily, and also to get to the airport easily, the event that you have to leave when the conference is over. And this is done by the event manager. Sometimes they'll even go as far as negotiating a discount on your behalf. So if you are able to stay in any of the hotels that they have listed, you get excellent service, and you also get a discount on your stay. And all this is organized by the event managers or organizers. So you realize that the event management and the hospitality industry go hand in hand. Please, does it make sense?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay. Next, let's talk about the significance of event management in the tourism industry. Now, here we are saying that events are one of the primary means of attracting tourists to destinations, especially in off-peak seasons. Now, this is a very, very smart way by which a lot of tourism destinations have managed to keep their revenue high, even at times where it is off-peak season. Off-peak seasons in the sense that it is not the time that people usually take time off work to go on holidays. You realize that in countries like Ghana and the United States, people usually take time off during the summertime, June, July, to make their trips and go on holidays. True or false?
True.
Good. And these are peak seasons because everyone is traveling around this time. And you realize that a lot of the operators take advantage of the period to charge sometimes high prices for plane fare and food and all that. However, during off-peak seasons, like in April, right, and in February and March, people are usually not traveling much at that time. However, some countries and destinations have been smart enough to organize events during this period to attract people. So, for instance, the April period within which these carnivals are organized is an off-peak season. A lot of people don't usually travel at Easter time. If they do, they don't travel internationally. They travel within the boundaries of their country to maybe attend a convention or visit family members. But organizing this around this time has made it a reason for people to travel outside of their domestic region or their geographic confines to attend this event, even though it's off-peak season. And this has helped Brazil to attract tourists during this period. And like we said earlier, events can also trigger a boost in tourism because once the event is able to gain traction and becomes famous, it attracts millions of people. The carnival attracts as many as 2 million people on a daily basis. So over the 3 or 4 day period, they attract as much as 8 million people, which is even bigger than the population of a lot of countries around the world. And this makes the host communities have the ability to become established as tourist destinations. And this is all as a result of events, because the events become synonymous with the place. Like Wimbledon, like Kweu Easter, like Ogwafe to Afashe. So they have become established tourist destinations by virtue of the events that they organize at these specific times, which attract tourists to come and experience the whole process of participating in the event, which contributes to the economic development of the destination as well. So that is it for the significance of event management in the tourism industry. Please, does anyone have any question they want to ask? Since we have come to the end of the session.